This is the Zion in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Johnson. Welcome. I like to give Caleb a hard time because we had to do a ton of post work because I kept saying in the last podcast, welcome to Temple in Mind. Temple in Mind is our store that we're filming in here at the University Place Mall in Orem. And I got to my left here, I got Sean Wilson with WK Wilson. Do you want to give us another shout out to your webpage?
Sure. The webpage is WK-Wilson. I
always miss the dash. So wait, sorry, say it again.
WK Wilson is actually like a famous bridge, also called the Dolly Parton Bridge. That's the side thing, obviously.
But that has nothing to do necessarily with the name,
Has nothing to do with
right?
me. So it's WK-Wilson.
WK-Wilson.
It stands for would not Wilson, but we don't tell people won't Wilson. We tell people to Wilson. So
okay.
WK Wilson.
Okay, WK-Wilson.com. All right, and to my right here we have Caleb Vanderhoff. Did I say that right?
Yes,
Caleb. That's correct.
I know. I think Caleb all the time too.
Caleb. When I was younger, it was always K-Love because, like my sisters, when they're
K-Love.
young, you can't really say certain words, and it was always K-Love.
Well, K-Love is like one of my favorite radio stations. No, they're not sponsored, by the way. But yeah, no, definitely. So Caleb Vanderhoff here. And Caleb, tell us a little bit about you and your involvement here and what we're doing.
So I'm the director of photography for Zion noiZ Entertainment and also for the store in the mall, Temple in Mind. I love doing film. It was truly a passion of mine in high school, and I'm excited to be able to do it in like the real world now.
Yeah, and he's producing the show for us. So you even have producing credits now to add all of that. And we are here, not quite live, almost live, right?
Just about.
About. We're almost there. We're doing a lot of stuff in post-production, but it's kind of good for us as we're experimenting with this new format and this new environment that we're in. So a lot of the stuff that we are doing is going to post, but eventually our goal is to get to a live stream and a live podcast. But if you tuned in last time with us, we had a entire audio series that wasn't filmed, and now we're filming, which is really exciting. And we actually have a cool jib that we're going to add and showcase the store a little bit better. But again, our theme necessarily here for the store isn't per se religious in general. I would like to lean towards more of like a self-help type category. Not that we have any
I don't think you need to categorize, but that's
everybody
true. Wants to, does.
Yeah,
What are you?
And I'm not fearful towards being like a religious type show. I just really want to make sure that we're incorporating a lot of beliefs and a lot of thoughts that may not necessarily be in line with our religious aspect of what we're doing. And that kind of leads to our theme of what I wanted to share on this podcast, and that's the word faith. And so when you guys hear the word faith in general, where does your mind go?
Well, we had a good talk about it just the other day about how faith is dead without action, basically. Faith is dead without works. And so when I think of faith, I automatically think of like believing through your actions.
But you tend to go towards more like a religious type push, right? And that's just kind of the way that we're raised, and same thing for me. So when you hear the word faith, Sean, where does your mind go?
I'm glad Caleb went first. So as Caleb said, your faith, if you have faith in something, obviously you're going to act towards that faith. Over the weekend, I heard stories that were just amazing people. And as I was looking around the congregation at church, people who have left family, people who have left countries, people who have left everything so they could have something that they wanted. So they had faith that it would be better.
And you're talking more like a pilgrimage or like a pioneer or so they left family. What do you mean exactly? Sorry.
So I'm looking around the congregation yesterday, and
within your congregation, people have left
within our church, within our ward.
Okay.
The gentleman who founded the church at 17 and went on a mission at 18. His family's mostly still in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And mostly not members.
Gotcha.
Ladies, two twins were baptized yesterday by their stepdad, who was given the priesthood in that same meeting so that he could baptize these kids. He's from Mexico. She left her family to be a part of the church and go on a mission. and still they have struggles, but they have this hope for better, and they're working towards it. And of course, you work towards something that's true, everything's going to come at you, and it's going to test you.
Yeah, and that's honestly, I think where a lot of people, when they hear the word faith, and now we're adding action, and we're getting a little ahead, I want to kind of pull back. We know that faith is dead without action. But what I want to pull back a little bit on is the word faith in general. And I think that faith in general is used religiously a lot because of that is the requirement of being able to be a religious person. I think in nature is you have to exercise a lot of faith. But for this particular scene or setup for this podcast, I want to focus on the word faith in general, not necessarily in a religious what's the word I'm looking for, in a religious type sphere, in a religious type look at it. Faith in general is just believing in something that is not there, or something unseen or unproven. You could even, in my opinion, you could even consider hypothesis an act of faith. Sometimes there's hypotheses that scientists put forward that aren't proven methods yet. They're just a theory in general of what possibly could happen. Now, there's a lot of education and a lot of things that's put together to create that hypothesis. But if you look at faith in general, what I'm trying to get to is that I believe that none of us act. None of us get to the form of action in anything without first having some element of belief, of faith. So you're not going to go apply for that job. You're not going to go ask that girl out on a date or whatever it might be if you didn't hope for things to actually come to an outcome. And so as we look at this format, there's someone that's, I think, very famous to a lot of people, and that's Gandhi. And he mastered this. And something that he would always teach, and I have it written down right here, he would say, our beliefs become our thoughts become our words become our action, and there's the faith to action, right? And our actions become our habits become our value, and our values become our destiny. And so there are a lot of people out there that really know that your thoughts do shape and define your destiny, and that's basically the path. But if we were to go back to the word faith, I think that there's a path here that's very similar to that. It's the hope is first before faith, and then faith to action, and then action to testimony. And I'm not necessarily talking about testimony in a religious belief. I'm talking about testimony in the fact that there is a level of conversion and conviction that we can create in anything that we do once we've reached past a certain point in action. Once we've put in the effort. And it can go two ways. I have seen people put all this effort and action towards something, and it flops in their face, and it's a backfire, and nothing happens, or they don't persevere through. But what I'm trying to talk about is that when you do reach that element of your goal is actually becoming more tangible, you get this almost charge and this energy that starts developing. And I'm starting to see that in the store. I'm starting to see that in the things that we're doing, where now it's creating a form of a testimony of like what we're doing. We're trying to say to other people, hey, look what we're doing. And so I really wanted to focus on this podcast on kind of maybe trying to change the paradigm just a little bit towards not trying to steer away from religion, and that's always an invitation to talk about, but more about just understanding what faith is in general, and how faith and applying faith into my life will work in every aspect of what I do, not necessarily just religion.
So do you believe right off the bat that there's a benefit for faith, even if... So let me rephrase that. So we know that, I just talked about people who have left family for faith.
Right.
They had a faith and a hope of something. And, you get up and you bear your testimony and you have this feeling, oh, there's a spark here. There's something that tells me that this is true. So do you believe in any aspect? Okay, I have faith, or, I'm going to make this leap of faith and do this store. Do you feel, or even ask this girl out in your view, do you believe that there's a spark of power or something when that is a true faith? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'm going to ask out the most popular girl in school because I'm just going to do it out of spite.
Right.
You're not. Are you saying that there's a truth
what's the
in
analogy
faith?
of, like, are we just going to jump off a bridge and fly? Are there principles?
Correct.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Taking that to the extreme, but yes.
Well, yeah, but I like to use.
I'd rather ask.
Yeah.
No. That's over my head than jump off a bridge, but it's still the same. The fall is still there. So,
I believe that if you have a plan, okay, all right, whatever it might be, and some people call it the law of attraction, some people call it the secret, and there's different formats to that. Okay. Let's just go back to the law of attraction. I do believe that there is a form of energy. Okay. We know about several different things that influence other things, and that there are energies that act upon other energies. And I'm not going to go into all the craziness of that, but
some of the
for that one.
Yeah, we need a whiteboard for that one. Definitely
draw a whole diagram of it. But I think one of the feelings or one of the energies that you feel could be the spirit. And I know you kind of want to kind of gear it more toward, not toward religion, but it's kind of hard to talk about faith without mentioning religion in some aspect.
Well, because I think it takes faith is the ingredient for religion. It has to be. How in the world? Think about what we do in our congregations, whatever faith that you are. I've yet to meet a different faith of my own that doesn't have some sort of prayer or doesn't have some sort of a praying in groups. Think about what you're doing right there. If you really didn't believe that you were praying to some higher power, you're nuts. You're just talking to yourself into a room of people that agree with you.
Exactly.
Just put that on the table. You're all crazy.
No.
No,
but I'm saying,
that's
but your
correct.
faith is
you're
like
crazy
no.
unless there's something else.
Exactly. So let me go back to answering your question. I want to hold on to that for just a second because that's great. I like what you're talking about there.
Put a pin in
Is
that.
the only way I think to answer your question is to see the opposite of what faith is, and that's fear. Right? So you ask, well, what happens in the circumstances of life, or like just things happen, right? So you put this plan together, it doesn't go the way that you think it should, and then there's this element of expectation that's mixed inside of this that we could talk about later. But let me go back to fear, because fear, into my opinion, is the complete opposite of faith. And so if you don't ask, or if you don't even try to go towards something, then you'll never know, right? So I'm not saying that you go jump off a bridge because I'm going to have the faith that I can fly.
Right.
But because there's obviously got to be some
But I guess I'm asking
intelligence there, right? But
why faith? So I understand, in faith and religion, where faith and you have a hope for something better.
Right.
I'm going to put this aside and going to shoot for this. I have faith in this that will bring me something better.
Right.
And right off the bat, when you start doing that, when you turn to the truth,
Right.
there's a power there.
Right.
There's a power to get you to that first step. There's that power to follow up.
The motivation to do
the whole thing,
Right.
And we totally should call it the spirit because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. But I totally agree with I think where you're going. So are you saying? I guess what I'm asking is, do you believe there's a power in truth? And so, whatever faith that you're putting faith into this, asking a girl out, or are you putting a faith into starting a business? So is truth coming in there, or I'm not saying this correctly?
No. I totally get what you're saying. Okay, let me.
Is there a power? Okay, it's a good thing. It's a true thing to go ask this girl out.
Well,
Is there a power there that pushes you, that motivates you towards good, towards truth?
I think there is.
More vague than I should.
No. I think you're right, because you're adding an element of what would be untruth. So I'm trying to understand something by seeing the opposite of it. For instance, I would say, using our examples in starting a business, I would say it's pretty untruthful in nature that I'm going to go build a business strictly off credit. I'm going to go into it, and I don't know what idea I'm going to go into, but I'm going to be able to go to the bank and get $100,000 or whatever it might be, and I'm going to do something. See, that's not truth. Or without a general plan or a business or something that's logical in nature. So for instance, it's not truthful in the fact of jumping off a bridge and you're going to fly, right? We talked about that. This I have faith that I can fly.
Actually, so you kind of fly for 2 seconds.
You do.
You don't make it very far.
But when you add truth, then you get the Wright brothers, right?
Okay.
So you get a principle that's built upon physics and nature and laws.
Okay. I guess
that does collectively come together, and now we fly across the world, right?
Right. So faith, I think faith and truth have to be connected, because you can have faith in something that is not true.
Right.
And you will
I
fly
agree.
for 2 seconds.
That's a very good point. Yes. And you will fly for 2 seconds.
And you will fly for 2 seconds.
Right.
Depends on how high you are, you know. Let's take a break for now. We'll come back after just one read. Today's sponsor is W.K. Wilson. From wooden plaques on your wall to bow ties that you can wear, W.K. Wilson creates amazing and unique designs that captivate the eyes of any who see them. These great creations are made by laser cutting many layers of wood and fitting them all together. The wooden plaques and bow ties make a special gift for friends, newlyweds, and loved ones. Visit their website today at wk-wilson.com.
Don't ever say, and if you're just joining us.
And if you're ever just joining us, why not?
Don't.
Why not?
If you're just joining us, I'm talking to. It's like, no, I was talking to this person the whole time, not just because you just joined us.
Welcome back to the Zion and Mind podcast. Oh boy. We're talking about faith. We're talking about faith and truth. We're talking about the elements of action to testimony. I'm really excited about this particular subject because it's a big theme for my life. Again, we are the Zion and Mind podcast, and I'm Aaron Johnson, your host, with my two co-hosts here, Sean Wilson and Caleb Vanderhoff. Say that right, man. Tongue twisters. You guys really get me. But
Got some
let's
good
go
names.
back to Sean here, if that's okay. Sean brought up a good point during the break, talking about truth and then defining the lines between hope and truth and then hope to faith. So this is getting I want to bring it back to you, put you on the spot because you're the one that started this.
It's my fault. I guess I want to find the connection. I know there's a connection, but I don't always
So
speak it out.
you're saying that there's got to be an element of truth. Otherwise, you're seeking after things that are false.
Right.
And you're putting false hope, you're putting false actions, you're putting false faith in certain things that
Right.
aren't of truth.
Right.
And then you're getting your hopes up, and then before long, it's dissolving and crumbling out from underneath you, and you have nothing, right?
Wow.
Right?
Very good. I appreciate you taking my stuff and just making it work.
I hope,
Yeah.
I hope I understood.
That was not
correctly.
sarcasm. I will try to tell you when I'm being sarcastic. By the way, I will try that. Anyway, but when you seek for something that there's not truth in,
Right.
is there power pushing you, or is it just like you being stubborn and I'm going to find this and I'm going to do it out of spite? It's like asking a girl out that you know that they'll say no.
And in our religious belief, you can also add the element of God. And we do know that there is an element that God has a plan in nature for you as well. So if you try to push without in our beliefs outside of that, then it does become an untruth or it becomes a false. Right? Because you're trying to steer your life in a direction that isn't in accordance with what God has in store for you.
So
right.
If we're saying that there's truth in faith, then where does the opposite come in? So you have faith in something that's untrue. Does that mean that it will fall apart because doesn't have truth?
So I'd actually love to read the definition of faith for you guys.
Yeah.
This is found in the Bible Dictionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the app that we come out with. But it basically says, and I'll go ahead and read it. It's kind of long, but I feel like it's completely relevant right now. So, faith is the hope for things which are not seen, but which are true, and must be centered in Jesus Christ in order to produce salvation. And that's where religion comes into play. To have faith is to have confidence in something or someone. The Lord has revealed himself and his perfect character, possessing in their fullness all the attributes of love, knowledge, justice, mercy, unchangeableness, power, and every other needful thing, so as to enable the mind of man to place confidence in him without reservation. Faith is kindled by hearing the testimony of those who have faith. Miracles do not produce faith, but strong faith is developed by obedience to the gospel of Jesus Christ. In other words, faith comes by righteousness, although miracles often confirm one's faith. And I think Aaron and I were talking about how faith doesn't bring to pass believing does bring to pass miracles. However, the miracle is not coming from you. it's coming from
I
Heavenly
give the
Father.
credit where it's due.
Right, true.
Right.
And so
Does that mean anytime you have faith in something, it has to be outside yourself? So you
I
have
don't
faith
know.
I think
in,
so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
and therefore I guess there's
I
there's
do.
a power or something that
Yeah.
you have faith in that's outside you
Absolutely.
that you're hoping for a reciprocal
Absolutely.
action back.
Why in the world
So
are we
you
here?
act
Yep.
and you're expecting a reaction.
Yep, exactly. I do believe in that because I think that that's one of the main reasons why we're here is to develop, to become something more than we were even just yesterday.
Right.
Right.
At the
But-
next paragraph
yeah.
underneath it, it says, all true faith must be based upon correct knowledge, or it cannot produce the desired results.
Truth. Okay. So that's a really
And
key.
the desired results. So
Yes.
hence everything else we talked about. You
Right.
have faith in a product that is not
Right.
good. You have faith in asking a girl out. I don't even know how that works anymore. I haven't
But
asked anybody out
they're-
for 30 years.
I can go into
Well, that's not
we
really true,
we
but-
can look at this and we can dissect every little part of it, but where I want to kind of steer the conversation is just to understanding what does the opposite do to us, and that's fear.
Okay.
And in fear in nature, it has no truth to it, in my opinion. I do believe that there is an element of fight or flight, which is critical. I do believe that human nature will never survive if we didn't have that programmed into our brains of fight or flight. And how that works is obviously if we're in danger or whatever it might be, our body will act in those circumstances to protect us, right? But I do believe that a lot of our fear is driven in untruth. And
Right.
I do believe
Okay.
that the untruth and fear are related versus truth and faith are related. So those are the two pieces: truth, faith, fear, untruth, right? And so they've even, I would love to pull up the statistics and maybe we could look this up later, but something to the effect of like 85% of what we fear actually doesn't come true. You know,
Right.
and even the whatever's left over on that percentage, what, 15%? Get my math and my calculator out here. Whatever's left over usually isn't the way that we thought that we were actually it was going to manifest into our life. It was just,
Right.
oh, we thought we were going to lose our job, when in reality we just got written up for something that actually wasn't a big deal, or you know,
Right.
we always just tend to go to the worst case scenario, right? And so what I'm trying to talk about is that why do we act? We always seem to lean towards more acting in fear than we do acting in faith. And like adding and complementing very well to this of finding the truth so that we have more confidence that we're acting in the correct faith
Right.
and we're not leaning towards our own understandings. And if I was to lean into my own understandings, I would never have done all of this.
So
it would have been crazy.
So are you saying that we as people kind of, or individuals, I kind of see this as maybe a big thing, but that we act in fear quicker than we act in faith?
I think it's easier for us.
Easier.
I think we're
that's a good point.
programmed. I really
Programmed,
believe
right.
we're programmed to think fear-based. And
Yeah.
I think that there's several elements that program that. I'll just go to the easiest one that I can think of, and that's just our entertainment in general. We love this nice hierarchy arc of this plot where there's an antagonist and there's got to be a resolve, and we've got to hopefully come out the end that everyone's okay, right? And
That's in the U.S.
right, sure.
In media and
No, that's
other countries, you can have
That's a
just a
very
crappy ending, and
that's a
the way it
very
works.
good point. And
I think
in
it's
other
a
countries,
European and Asian thing, where
Yeah,
it's just,
and that's a very good point because
which you have to know that before you invest in 3 hours in a really good movie where it ends and it
And it
just
just ends-
falls apart. It's
it
just like,
ends in disaster.
what?
Then you just walk away just
Yeah.
disappointed. I
But
want my
I've
money
also
back.
but no, I've also noticed that in other countries that they actually pride themselves in not having people that are fear based. But it seems in
point.
our
I love
country
it.
that fear is a tool that's used in order to get a result, in order to push a mass population of people. For example, if I was to have a gun here and I was to point that to your head, immediately I would gain respect. It
You'd
wouldn't
gain
be
something,
It,
yeah.
it wouldn't be a good respect, but
Probably
you would
wet
probably
pants for me.
follow. Right, you'd probably follow my commands, even to the point.
Right.
I
Is
could
that
steal your-
respect? Right. But still,
I would get some form of attention. I
You
would get
totally
some form
would.
of like you would. I would be your number one focus,
you would, yes.
right? And so I think that people that use fear as their way of being able to motivate other people to do
Right.
things.
Oh, there's so much there.
I know. I think that fear is such an easy way of steering people versus faith and truth.
It's like a sugar high, huh? It's just like a quick, I should be eating that apple. But man, I got
This
that
donut?
Oreo cookie right there. It's like I got a quick sugar high, or I got some
Yeah.
fiber. I should go for it.
The instant gratification thing.
So
Like,
that's
I
a
look at-
shortcut.
I
huh?
look at a lot of managers. A lot of managers love to be. They think
right,
that they've got to put their employees under fear.
right.
They've got to make sure they have that clipboard and they're checking off all their, whatever's their infractions and all these
I'm
different things.
watching you.
Yeah, exactly.
You better-
Oh, you better do what I say, because it's so much easier for them in their perspective
Them to lift
to
them up.
manage people in fear versus actually being a decent manager who inspires faith amongst his employees or her employees, and then they have contribution into the goal of the whole company, right?
Can I add to that? So
Yeah.
you take that manager, he does not have faith in himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it seems like
Or
once
they're
you,
programmed to thinking that is the way to manage people.
it's still the same thing.
It's very interesting because I was just talking to my wife just the other night about how.
That's good. You should do that often.
Yes,
Very
I love
often. The other
it. We have some good pillow talks. But one of our talks that we had was about how sometimes in our lives we are our worst enemy.
Absolutely.
And let's just think of it from, I'm studying in film, and so I really enjoy talking about that sort of aspect. But if you think about it, the majority of your life, someone else isn't the antagonist in the story.
It's yourself.
It's yourself.
Absolutely.
And so that's a very interesting concept to kind of think about, is when we're motivated by fear, we have a lot of unrealistic fears that drive us. That, I don't want to start a business because I'm afraid of embarrassing myself, or I'm afraid of it not being successful and I'm going to be out of a job, But if you think of it with truth in mind, what we've been talking about, and kind of put aside your own doubts and your own fears, and this can also relate to believing in God, then miracles will happen, and things that are really good for you and your life and your family and everything that you have are going to work out.
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of go back and still adding to that, but where you're talking about this internal perspective or this internal view, and managing people or just dealing with people in general, I think it's interesting how we ourselves are just making up stuff that's probably not even there. I would say in more cases than not. Now, granted, if I got a diagnosis from my doctor tomorrow that I have cancer and I have 3 years to live or whatever it might be, wow, okay, well, there's some element of truth in that, right? But does that mean that I just kind of roll up and die and I'm done? Is there action that I can take? Can I find a second opinion? So we're starting to understand two sides of this. And let me recap real quick. We're talking about truth and truth and faith. And then we have fear and untruth or lies in general. And so for me, I really want to change the way that we look at things. Try not to be so fear motivated, because I think that our fear is getting in the way of truth. I think our fear is not even allowing us to get to faith, because it is so much louder in our minds than truth is. Because the truth is that when you get into a situation of like starting a business, you are smart enough to figure out the problems that you're going to find. I mean, that's the only way a business is going to survive. And so when someone says, I would never dare start a business, or I would never ask that girl out, or I would never whatever it might be, well, you haven't even started the process of understanding who you are as a person. Because if you really understood who you are as a person, you'll see the value that's there. And when you find the value of who you are as a person, from there, then you can set your course to exactly what you should develop and become. And that's the person that you'll meet, who will say yes to your dates, who will take you further towards marriage or whatever it might be, or the business that fits for you in your niche. Does that make sense?
And I want to add something to that. There are probably lots of people out there, and I was one of them, to where you become your worst enemy and you start having a lot of doubts and you tell yourself lies, and you don't think that you're smart enough or strong enough to be able to to do
And
something.
why is that?
Well, and the point that I'm trying to make is, if you're listening to this right now, whether you're sitting at home or you're at work or whatever, driving on the road, you made it this far. So
keep going.
Keep going.
Isn't
Don't give up.
Fun? Sometimes you have to, I kind of see how, I can't do this, whatever. Sometimes you have to step back. It's kind of like, have you ever met, and I know I've done this, where, the atonement's for him.
Right.
You hear somebody's story and, the atonement's for you.
Right.
You can move forward.
Right.
And then something
Absolutely.
that you've done, it's like, well, no, I'm going to hold on to this forever. The
Right.
atonement's not for me in this. It's like,
What?
wait a second. Okay, now step back. Isn't this for everybody?
Yep. Absolutely.
Therefore, and sometimes we, like you said, oh my goodness. Of course, how would it be if we were on this earth and there was not opposition and everything? If there was not stuff to overcome, we just know that we could do this.
Right.
But we have that opportunity to seek truth, and then to have faith that we can move forward in that truth.
Right.
And there's two elements of programming that I see that's happening in our minds. We already talked about one, that, fear, and we're programmed to be fear motivated. Okay. But the other thing is that we're programmed in our mind to look at what other people are doing and seeing their great grandeurs are not ours, or their great accomplishments are like, we're seeking after the wrong things. We really are. We're looking at a lot of people's ends, their successes as being on top, as where we should start. And the thing is that if you were to actually go and see the journey that these successful people have made in their homes, in their families, or whatever it might be, if you were to go behind that curtain and really see how they got there, you would realize that you yourself are already there on that same course going that direction. And if you just kept pushing and kept going like they did, you will eventually end up there. But what we end up doing is we end up shying away from this idea of, I can never accomplish that, or look what this person did. I mean, I look at some successful people in the space industry right now, and I won't name names, but I'm just like, I'd be blown away in my mind to even think about going to Mars, or even think about getting out of the atmosphere, let alone blowing up millions of dollars in the sky with that next rocket that just exploded. That would sink me. So I let's hold on to that thought for just a second. I think we got to cut to a break. Is that right, Caleb? Okay. All right. We'll pick this back up after a brief message from our sponsors.
Today's sponsor is Temple in Mind. Gazing upon the house of the Lord reminds us of the simple phrase, choose the right. This powerful reminder turns us back to temples time and time again, and gives us the strength to carry on through the best and worst of times. They love temples and what they represent, so they have a collection of timeless, unique items to help keep your home centered around what really matters. At Temple in Mind, they have something for everyone and every occasion. They hope you'll be as excited as they are to help light the world with items that truly keep temples in mind. Visit their store at the University Place Mall in Orem, Utah, or check out their website at templeinmind.com. Welcome back to the Zion in Mind podcast. My name's Caleb, and I have Aaron and Sean next to me. Sean, you were saying something very interesting before we came back.
Yeah. Now I'm on.
Yes.
Now I'm on. And
You're on
I
the
can say,
spot.
I see, and I know that I've done this as well, where I am so afraid of doing something wrong, or even being seen to do something wrong, that I'm afraid to go out of my way to do something that is right.
Well, I think that's unintentional. You never want to say, I'm going to go out and not do it right. I think unintentionally you don't do it right. Because you're so scared of doing it wrong. Is that what you're saying?
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, it's like we were just discussing we should be seeking, as opposed to waiting for someone to tell us what the truth is. We should be seeking the truth and
proactive
in our lives, in what
absolutely
that next step that we need to do, who we need to ask out, what we need to start,
right.
who we need to look in on, who we need to help, because we all have big strengths and stuff. And I think someone said, well, I used to check on this person all the time, but COVID.
Mm-hmm. Now
wait a second. They didn't step back and go, okay, there's a truth here that I could seek.
Right. Yeah. And that leads into the next part of the segment that I wanted to talk about, and that's our expectations. And our expectations need to be, I'm not going to go into the realistic side of our expectations or the unrealistic expectations. What I want to talk about is why we're not happy as people in general. Because if you look at the formula of why we are happy or why we're not happy, it's pretty simple. And that is taking the measurement of our expectations into where we actually are. So for instance, we could be extremely happy if we just won the lottery, right? And we get really excited. We have all these problems solved that we think that we have solved. But guess what happens to our expectations as we live in that environment for a period of time? Our expectations move into that new environment, right?
Right.
And so
Isn't that the
now
same thing as
my Lamborghini's broken.
You got a good raise and your expectations
Exactly.
are changed.
And the expectations of our employer as well, right?
Right.
And so what we need to understand is that ups and downs are never going away. That positives and negatives in our lives are never going to go away. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or if you only have 2 cents in the bank. There's always going to be some form of expectation.
What, 10 talents or 2 talents?
Exactly. And your expectations are measured based upon where you think you should be. And so what I wanted to do with this format in nature is to have us recalibrate our brains in a little bit, not be fear-motivated people, but to truly understand our expectations. I'm totally fine if your expectations are through the moon or through the roof or whatever they say. Yeah, do it. Please dream big. I'm a big dreamer, really, really big. But
there's no argument there. We love hanging out with you because you're a big dreamer.
But the expectation, when it doesn't accomplish exactly the way I had planned it out, that doesn't become truth.
Right.
Because you can't sit here and write a roadmap that's going to be perfect in every little aspect of your life. That's not truth. There's elements that you don't even know about that are going to be cause and effect on you. So what ends up happening is you're down in this negative trough as I see the ups and downs. Right. So what becomes faith is the way that we behave from one expectation to the next expectation. And so you can choose. We know the downward spiral that people get into. We know the drugs and whatever that influences people to get into this downward mess. But a lot of people don't understand there's an upward spiral as well.
Right.
There's an upward trend that we can go.
It seems like, so Caleb talked about, you've already accomplished so much. I don't know if that's exactly what you were saying, but look where you are. Look that you're moving forward.
Right.
Sometimes we don't see that. We have to step out. We have to look back and, oh my goodness, look what I've accomplished already.
Sometimes we get tunnel vision when we're going through our lives. And yeah, that's exactly right. Sometimes we don't see where we are and where we came from. We just see what's happening right now. And like your fears kind of take over your mind and take the steering wheel, for lack of better words, and start driving crazy.
Spiral. And that's ignoring truth.
Right.
So if we're talking about faith and truth, that's ignoring the truth that how much you've already accomplished.
Right.
And then we pour gasoline on it and light it on fire with this expectation of where we need to be because we see everybody else with the bigger home or the bigger dream or the bigger job or the better wife or whatever it might be.
Oh, that's just Instagram stories. We're good.
Absolutely. It's Facebook. It's all of it, right? And the funny thing is if we were actually to go in and see behind that curtain, I'm talking about it again, if we were really to go see the process of how we got here, I mean, I can tell you stories. They'd be like, what? You did what? And you had to do what? And you had to do this for the city and you had to do this. Like, it's a nightmare.
Right.
But it's how you look at it. I knew that we could have the potential of accomplishing something good here. That was so much more empowering to me than the negative that I was going through, that I was able to push through it.
If I could step you back. So you said, I knew. Okay. But the whole theme is faith.
Yeah.
Did you have faith? Did you know where's that line?
Man.
Where's that line?
That's a good question. Let's hear it.
It becomes a level of testimony to me when you are brave enough to testify of what you're doing. When you have put aside all of your...
That's a good way of putting what you do. And I don't mean that in a bad way. You're out there. You're like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this, and I've just told everybody we're gonna do this. Therefore,
people think I'm nuts. And you know what? You have to be a little bit crazy in order to be an entrepreneur. Because I mean, again,
or if I may, or a missionary, or a caregiver.
You're gonna do what for 2 years of your life? What? That's nuts.
My daughter-in-law is a caregiver for senior people. You do what on a daily basis?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
that's a very rewarding job, by the way. Anyway, I just think that if you have a level of testimony where you believe in it so much into your core, and then you have confirmation from a higher power, in my case, it's God. But if you have confirmation with a higher power that this is the right direction that you go, faith starts moving into more of a practical thing. And I would even dare to say, and we don't have enough time to even go into it, but there's the analogy in the parable of the mustard seed. And I won't go into the science of it because it gets really long. And again, you said like we need to have the whiteboard, and maybe we could do that at another time. But I do believe that faith is a level of intelligence. I do believe intelligence is a form of light. And I do believe that light can actually gather in enough to create substance. I know that sounds crazy, okay? But I do believe that intellectual intelligence is substance. I do believe it's something you have. And so if you sit there and think in your life that, I'm never going to accomplish that, or look what he's doing, or if you let all these influences of the world get into your brain, okay, then you're going to be steered that direction, and that's what you're going to accomplish. Because what happens in our mind is there's no firewall between our thought and our heart. There's not. Whatever you think in your mind, your heart is just going to just process as truth, regardless if it's right or wrong. I mean, if you start thinking fear thoughts, your heart's going to believe that, and then your emotions are going to portray towards that fear. And those emotions, like back to what Gandhi said, your emotions are going to steer you to your destiny, right? And so I'm very careful at what I think. I'm very careful at what I'm trying to say and manifesting and talking to other people. And I do understand. My expectation is understanding that there is truth, and there are some things that I do say out there there's like, that's just not going to happen. But I'm still going to try to say it. I'm still just going to try to get it out there, because I can't even begin to tell you. You've talked about how networking for the store has been an amazing thing. Well, that networking comes from manifesting outward. Hey, this is what I'm going to do. Here's where we're going to go.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the direction I want to take this.
You're almost bearing testimony. This is...
Absolutely. Every day.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to do it. And then sure enough, somebody says, oh, well, I've got someone you need to meet.
Right.
Done. And then there's the connection. So...
Perspective is a very interesting thing. Kind of going back to what you were talking about, how if you shoot yourself down, then
that's where you're going.
There goes your dream,
you're going down.
That's where you're going.
Well, let me, so you said at the beginning, like you self-help. So I know people who cannot move, who cannot get out of the house.
Yeah.
How do we, what do you say to someone who fear is...
Oh gosh, Sean is really good at bringing it real. I love
Making it real,
because we cannot throw out the window mental health and limitations of people. We can't. Okay. Now, I've seen people that have limitations that have done amazing things, but they're not necessarily going out and like winning a gold medal or doing something.
Me neither.
Right, me. But I have seen some people that have, for instance, there's a gentleman I would love to have on the podcast, and I want to pull up his name and get it all right, but he has no limbs. And yet he's allowed that to be his actual reason for wanting to inspire other people.
Is that his weakness becoming his strength? Is that what?
Yeah, but the thing is, he doesn't see it as a weakness. That's the beautiful thing. We do. We see it as a weakness because he can't go do what I can do. When he's like, but you can't go speak to thousands of people like I can, right? And so it's just perspective and seeing our weakness, is it really a weakness, or like, and that leads into sin, okay? And we got to be really careful about this. I would never, ever endorse sin. I would never endorse it because we don't want to do that, right? But I don't want to take out the element of the atonement. I don't want to take out the element of us making a change and developing and becoming something new.
Do we think that nobody thought we were coming down here and not going to have sin, not going to sin?
Right, absolutely.
There's
We're
no
gonna
way
make
that...
a lot of mistakes.
There's no way that...
A lot.
I mean, the Lord basically said, here you're going to go fail.
And we're influenced in a lot of ways.
And within that failure, we're going to give you a way out. We're going to teach you who you are.
And that's exactly where I'm going.
And we're going to teach...
Right.
Okay,
I feel like there's mistakes that could be made, but I don't think anything is a mistake. I don't think it's wasted. Let me take that back. Sorry. Let me quote that correctly. I believe that, of course, we're going to make mistakes, but I don't think anything's wasted. You know what I'm saying by that? I do think that a person that goes out and lives a life full of drugs, they can waste away their life. I understand that element of it, but a person that recovers from that has an amazing story that can really build a lot of lives. Do you see the
It
perspectives
seems like
that could be done?
You have a mistake is a mistake, is a choice that you've realized is wrong.
A mistake is only a mistake if it stays as a mistake. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. And that's where the
Think
atonement.
through each mistake that you make, through each failure that you have, you learn from it. And I think
We hope so, yeah.
and that's what defines the difference between people who are holding on to their mistakes and people who have moved past them. Are those who have learned from their mistakes and moved on, or those who can't seem to find the answer that they're looking for.
Right.
Right. I think part of that is you're in your mistakes is that understanding that you can hope for something.
Right.
And I don't know how you teach somebody who's in the middle of that. Oh no, there's so much.
So sometimes you can't.
So much more. Just, take that. And I think life is baby steps.
Yeah. And I endorse professionals to get involved. I'm a firm believer in whatever medical technology that you might need for yourself to get involved in that. I very much encourage that. I'm not one of those people that think that I can think my way out of anything. The reason I am here is because of the people that I surround myself with and the help that I get. Right. And so the problem is that a lot of people don't even want to seek after help. They don't even want to, maybe they get stuck in these little areas and they don't even.
It's a fear.
It's a fear. Again, a fear.
More afraid of.
When the tools are there to help. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
kind of like you're stuck in a bad relationship. It's easier to be stuck in a relationship where you have somebody as opposed to the fear of not having anyone.
I swear you're reading my mind. This is crazy. I want to share a story real quick from my father, who was a firefighter one time, and I'll never forget this story. Are we okay on time? He's like, well, he's watching our time here. Okay, real quick, and this is hopefully to wrap this all up, and you guys can add your little last thoughts. But he went into a fire one time, and the fire was kind of caused because of these people and their hoarding. And there was a lot of trash and a lot of stuff that was just collected by these people, and in their mental health was not in a good place. And my dad, when he came to the fire, the lady just came out screaming, "My baby, my baby, my baby." And so my dad's just instantly thinking, oh my goodness, there's a child in the house. The house is engulfed in flames. What do I need to do? So he gets all of his gear on and does everything he does. And of course, he's on his hands and knees and crawling into the house, trying to look scattered, looking for a child. He's looking for a crib. Doesn't find anything. And now he's like, this is getting very, very dangerous. So finally, as he's kind of turning around to head back to the door saying, I don't know where this baby is, he hears this dog whimpering. And he's been kind of like ignoring it because he's listening for a cry, not for a whimpering dog. But this lady is referencing to a dog. So he looks in the corner and he sees this small little cage and it's piled with newspapers on it. And, it's getting pretty dramatic here because he needs to do something quickly. So he gets up to it, and this is giant Doberman pinscher inside of this small, tiny cage. And he's like, is this the baby that she's talking about? Well, I don't know. I'm going to keep looking. So he goes and he reaches for the cage. And sure enough, this Doberman pinscher just reaches out and lashes at my dad. So what ends up happening is he finally gets it so he can just at least open the cage, and he's just like, oh, this dog's just going to run after me. So he opens the cage. The dog knows he's in danger. He knows that the environment is not safe, and he's barking, he's yelping, he's pinching at my dad. And so my dad's like, I'm going to have to grab this dog and pull it out or it's going to die. So he's got a glove on, so he reaches in there, and sure enough, the dog does bite after him. And then my dad pulls back, and he's like, wait a minute. I got to be careful here. This dog leans at me. He can grab my oxygen tank or whatever, my hose, and I could be jeopardized.
Right.
So what he ends up doing is he tries to figure out a way to coax, if that's the right word, this dog out of this bad environment, right? And so as he's going towards the door, he's like, hey, this way, this way, this way. And so my dad is now at the door looking in, can see the dog can see him, and he knows that's the way out, but the dog won't move. The dog will not come out of that zone. And what my dad was trying to teach me was the fact that we get in very dangerous situations. And the only way to get out of that situation is to get out of what we know is comfortable. Unfortunately, a lot of the times our comfortable zone is actually very dangerous for us. What we're familiar with, what we think is right for our life is actually the most dangerous place to be. And so I believe that we live in a life that's made to challenge us. It's made to come out of that comfort zone, that we can be free. And we know what's on the other side of that door. We know the owner is right there and he's going to cuddle that baby of hers. But unfortunately, in this story, it was a sad story. The dog did end up perishing because my dad could not grab this dog and pull it out. And so I want us to think about that. I want to think, what cages are we in? Even though that somebody's come up to the door and unlocked it and said, this is the way. Here we go. This is the way out. But we just won't act. We won't move forward. Even when somebody's right there with all the professional gear to help us or whatever it might be, we still don't act because we're more comfortable in our comfort zone, which is not a good place to be, actually. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, the final thoughts on that? That was a lot.
That was a lot.
Boom.
And we're going to drop that there. I think you started out by talking about...
Full circle. Perfect.
Now you just totally messed me up.
Oh, no.
No, how the media and how we
they want to put you in that cage.
that fear.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to make decisions where if you follow that long enough, you don't have that. You cannot make a decision out of that.
Right.
They put you in that kennel.
Dependent.
Put you in that kennel. Put you in that kennel. Put you in that kennel. That's a safe place. Guess what? Now it's a safe place. But on the other side of that, you have to make every one of those steps to believe it.
Right. Right.
That the kennel is that
A lot of people can't see the kennel.
Right, I know,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't get into a position. You don't to take this as far. You don't shoot a man on a split. It's just not one decision. When you shoot somebody, you have made a lifetime of decisions to get you to a place where you are shooting someone for whatever reason it is.
Right,
I mean, if you're committing a crime, let's put it that way. If you're committing a crime, if you're, whatever, it is not.
Sometimes I do want to add to that, is that sometimes people don't think about those long-term decisions when they do, things like that, which makes it kind of hard because we're so grown up in the atmosphere of instant gratification.
Yep.
I want this right now, and I want to be happy right now. So I'm going to go and I'm going to, rob a bank
The fast
or
food,
whatever.
the fast food of life.
But I guess I'm saying is at any step, any one of those decisions, you could have started making a decision to be out of that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that means like right now, you can step back and okay, I have these two choices. Which one's gonna where are these choices gonna take me? Are they gonna take me to truth?
Right.
Are they gonna take me to consequences? Like jumping off that building and hoping that you can fly, that's gonna be really bad in a couple seconds.
Right.
And that kind of segues into what I wanted to share with, kind of going back to what I was saying before about how, if you're listening to this right now, then you made it. I mean, let's just be honest. You made it here.
You made it up to this point, yeah.
You can keep on going and make sure that you are thinking about your decisions that you're making. Is this truth that you're fearing? Or is it an unrealistic fear? Set the line between the two of them.
Yeah.
Understand where that line is drawn and have faith and hope that things will work out, because 9 out of 10 times they do.
Yeah. And even in that 1 out of 10 times that don't,
It's probably more than that, but yes.
Yeah.
even
It's
if it
probably
is,
10 out of 10.
Well, yeah.
but
95%.
let's say even if it's 50% of the time, I can't even begin to tell you the most amazing stories that have come from people that have been down and out and checked out and haven't been given the time of day, and they've risen to the occasion in some form or another. And in some cases, that's just getting up in the morning and being a parent, or getting up and deciding to go to work and to put that foot forward. There has been days where just brushing my teeth is my challenge for the day, just because I can't even function because it's so hard. But I brushed my teeth. I kept going forward. I kept pushing. And that's why, we can go into that in another segment. But again, this has been
segment about brushing your teeth.
Yeah,
Let me before
Yes.
you wrap
Yes.
up.
Yes, please.
I think one important thing is when we interact with other people, we have to realize what Caleb just said.
Yes.
They have made it.
Yeah.
They are
Treat
a
people,
powerful person
yes.
right there. No matter what they
Yes.
look like, no matter how they speak, no matter what their background is, that is a powerful person who will accomplish
Yes.
great things. And if
see
you
that-
don't realize that,
yes.
then you're ignoring the truth.
Absolutely. That is a very
Yeah.
good way to end this segment.
The truth is that everyone can accomplish great things. Big or small, doesn't matter. But we can end things there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to the Zion in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Johnson.
I'm Caleb Vanderhoff.
And Sean Wilson.
Thanks for joining us.
This podcast has been brought to you by W.K. Wilson and Temple in Mind. Thank you for listening.